Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. Here's what we have in the bulletin. Education Ministry downplays teacher strike impact on schools despite disruptions. Tension brewing among members of the Jamaica Police Federation over the ongoing wage negotiations. And in sports, Windies trail by 73 runs versus South Africa. I'm Janella Precious, and here are the details. The Ministry of Education is reporting that only about 10% of schools across the island have been impacted by the ongoing industrial action taken by teachers. However, Education Minister Favour Williams says the ministry will be guided by the Ministry of Labour in handling the matter. Sandy Williams has our story.
For a fourth consecutive day, teachers remain off the job, and the numbers are growing in terms of those participating in the industrial action. Things could worsen in the days ahead, possibly leading to a total shutdown of the public sector school system. Delegates of the Jamaica Teachers Association on Wednesday sending a strong signal to the government that the educators are not satisfied with the $12 billion wage offer. Education Minister Favour Williams is downplaying the impact.
Yesterday, I note that about 8 to 10% of schools had reported some disruption. In light of what continues to be said in the public domain about schools, the Ministry of Education and Youth has an obligation to remind all the stakeholders or boards or principals or teachers of their responsibility under the Education Act and the Education Regulation.
Mrs. Williams insists that the ministry has not been formally advised by the Jamaica Teachers Association of any industrial action being taken by the union. In a release Thursday, the ministry called on the JTA to speak with its members concerning the ethical and lawfulness of their conduct under the current circumstances. It further states that principals are responsible for the deployment of teachers and is expected to give an account for the deployment of staff. Therefore, teachers who report to work and has signed the attendance register as being present for the school day are expected to carry out their duties as per the deployment schedule approved by the Board of Management and issued by the principal. The release states that where this is not done, a teacher may be deemed to have neglected his or her duties, for which disciplinary action can be taken.
We cannot stand idly by while there's disruption in the sector. We have to make our voices heard, and we've done that through this official bulletin to the education sector, and in it we have laid out quite clearly what the Act and the regulation call on us to do.
In the meantime, Mrs. Williams says the ministry will be seeking guidance from the Ministry of Labour in dealing with the matter. Sandy Williams, TVJ News.
Meanwhile, it's understood that rank-and-file members of the Jamaica Constabulary Force will converge at a special meeting called by the Jamaica Police Federation later this afternoon. The Federation has been steadfast in its position that the officers deserve more than what is being offered under the compensation review. There's a concern that some members will be worse off under the new regime. The National Works Agency is promising a significant increase in work on the Boston to Drapers leg of the Southern Coastal Highway Improvement Project in Portland to settle the dust and water issues residents have been protesting about. The work had been stalled for the past 3 to 4 months because the subcontractor quit. But following a tour of the 7-kilometer stretch of roadway, the NWA says things will improve soon. We have the details from Krista Campbell.
A new subcontractor on the 7 kilometers of roadway from Boston to Drapers in Portland. And so, communications manager at the National Works Agency, NWA, Stephen Shaw, says the highway construction work, which had slowed along that stretch over the past 4 months, will resume shortly.
The first thing is to ensure that the second half of the water lines along the corridor, that those lines are tested and the contractor and ourselves will be satisfied as to the quality that is beneath the road.
He says following that, several minor issues will also be addressed, to include
curb and channels or side drains. Those will be treated with. There are a couple of culverts that are outstanding to be installed, and those will also be done.
And with Member of Parliament for Portland Eastern Anne-Marie Vaz adding to the cries of constituents over the disruption of the water supply and excessive dust earlier this week, Stephen Shaw says there's a push to have at least 1 kilometer of roadway paved every month until the area is complete.
The laying of base material will have to be done in much of the areas, and so once the base is laid and it is properly prepared for the asphaltic concrete, we expect that same will be undertaken.
He says he's open to discussions with China Harbour Engineering Company Czech to see if priority can be given to the Boston area.
We do recognize the importance of Boston to not only the local people but to Jamaica in terms of our marketing of this area from a tourism standpoint.
Krista Campbell, TVJ News.
It's time for a break. Stay with us. We'll have more stories when we return. Welcome back to the Midday News. Despite the concerns outlined by the Jamaica Police Federation, there are some police officers who are upset that the union is yet to sign the wage agreement with the government. Carrie Simpson explains.
They did not wish to speak on camera because of feared backlash, but some police officers in St. James say they are growing frustrated. They're accusing the Jamaica Police Federation of keeping them out of the loop about aspects of the ongoing wage negotiations with the government.
We, the rank and file, want to know how much money is the government offering us. Give us an opportunity to say yes, we're going to take it, or no, we're not going to take it. We want to know what are they rejecting.
The government has allocated $10.2 billion to pay rank-and-file members of the JCF who are represented by the Jamaica Police Federation, $1 billion to pay district constables who are represented by the United District Constables Association, and a further $600 million to pay members of the officer ranks who are represented by the Police Officers Association. As for retroactive payments, if that agreement isn't signed by March 31, workers will have to wait another year before the monies are paid.
The Federation can sign, let me get that retroactive money. The Federation can always go to the bargaining table. There's always room for improvement. The Federation can always go to the bargaining table. But the Federation needs to sign now so we can get this retroactive. We need this money.
And as the time nears this final word,
a lot of us rank and file members are suffering, and right now this can help us a whole lot. So the Federation needs to sign and sign now.
Carrie Simpson for TVJ News.
Director of Public Prosecutions, Paula Llewellyn, says her office will be consulting with the authorities to force the country's telecommunications providers to be more cooperative in criminal investigations. Her comment follows yesterday's conclusion of the summation of evidence in the One Don gang trial, in which 15 defendants were convicted of being members of a criminal organization. The DPP says the lack of interest by telecom service providers to cooperate had negatively affected the Crown's case in the trial.
We found their lack of enthusiasm very, very demotivating and off-putting. And perhaps had we had the cooperation much earlier in the day, long before the case started, it would have helped to enhance certain aspects of the technological material that we put before the court, in terms of putting us in a better position to contemplate and consider the full input and weight of that evidentiary material. So going forward, we certainly will see what can be done, perhaps by the authorities, to make it obligatory and almost mandatory.
In December 2021, Digicel was summoned to provide critical call data after prosecutors disclosed that the police faced challenges in obtaining the records from the island's two telecommunications companies. Chief Justice Brian Sykes is to begin the sentencing phase of the trial on July 3. The Ministry of Agriculture is boosting the benefits of weather information in the agriculture sector. This following the launch of an EU-funded training course geared towards helping farmers better respond to the impacts of climate change in agriculture. Sandy Williams has the details.
Climate change has been significantly impacting the agricultural industry. According to the Ministry of Agriculture, adverse weather events have cost Jamaica approximately $3 billion in losses in the last 3 years alone. It's why Chief Technical Officer in the ministry, Courtney Cole, says it is important that stakeholders in the sector have access to accurate weather information.
Indeed, weather stations can provide the necessary data for farmers to make informed decisions and adopt climate-smart agriculture practices. The availability and participation of climate information must therefore become an integral part of day-to-day decision-making by farmers and extension agents of critical role in this process.
16 extension officers and other key stakeholders recently enrolled in a 5-day training course dubbed Participatory Integrated Climate Services for Agriculture, PICSA. The initiative, among other things, is intended to help farmers improve the decisions they make regarding their animals and crops. Peter Doward is a professor of agriculture systems at the University of Reading in England.
PICSA was developed very much as a participatory approach where we support the farmers and put them first. And we have a little saying in PICSA, which is the farmer decides. So everything is to support the farmer make their own decision by giving them new information, new tools, and encouraging them in that journey as they look at different options.
The 5-day workshop was held at the Twickenham Park training facility in St. Catherine. It's part of a 4-year project funded by the European Union.
I'm very happy to say that expectations have been exceeded. It's been really very professionally productive this week. People have really taken to the approach, contributed ideas, worked really hard. And the highlight was, as it usually is, the field day with the farmers, where we all get to see how is it helping farmers and what's the farmers' reaction to it.
Sandy Williams, TVJ News.
It's now time for the Business Minute.
An independent fiscal commission has been established to ensure Jamaica sticks to its fiscal rules. While not naming the newly appointed commissioner, Dr. Clark gave this update as he opened the budget debate on Tuesday.
The new fiscal commissioner is a veteran of the Ministry of Finance who previously spent 3 years at the IMF. He returned and was appointed Deputy Financial Secretary, and then he was recruited by the Ministry of National Security, where he has served as Permanent Secretary since 2020. The Fiscal Commission will be the guardian and interpreter of Jamaica's fiscal rules and will be required to monitor adherence to these rules and provide independent assessments of budgetary outcomes in addition to independent analysis.
Further afield, job openings in the U.S. dropped in January. The Bureau of Labor Statistics reported Wednesday that the number of available positions fell to 10.8 million in January, down from 11.23 million in December. The January report showed that hiring increased while layoffs surged. The number of people who quit their jobs dropped. The continued imbalance between worker supply and demand means the U.S. job market remained tight in January. For the Business Minute, I'm Shimela Pullen.
And time now for the top regional and international stories.
In the region, The Turks and Caicos Islands continue to deal with an influx of illegal migrants after a vessel was intercepted on Wednesday. According to reports, an operation was carried out following reports that a suspicious vessel was seen making its way towards West Caicos. The migrant vessel was found carrying a total of 202 illegal migrants, 40 females, 3 of whom are minors, and 162 males, including 1 minor. The illegal migrants were handed over to the Immigration Task Force. On the international scene, U.S. prosecutors say the 6-year-old boy who allegedly shot his elementary teacher earlier this year will not be criminally charged. The incident, which happened on January 6, left the teacher critically injured from a bullet to her chest. She was released from the hospital more than a week after the shooting. Prosecutors say the prospect that a 6-year-old can stand trial is problematic because the child is too young to understand the legal system. Authorities have yet to decide if an adult will face criminal charges in the case. The firearm was legally purchased and belonged to the child's mother. And those are the top regional and international stories. I'm Carrie Simpson.
Time now for a break, but when we come back, Karen Madden will have your midday sports report. Please stay with us.